Have you ever thought about how your life experiences could become a powerful book, a story that inspires, motivates, and moves others to achieve more in their life? Well, in this world of AI generated content literally exploding in the volume around us, then real life human personal stories are going to be worth their weight in gold. And telling yours could be the best decision that you ever made. Stay tuned for this episode where we're going to get right into the topic of your story, coming right up.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and over the last 25 years in marketing and business, I've helped many brands to launch, scale, and grow, with some of them becoming multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm here to inspire you to get out of your own way and create a profitable, fulfilling business while living the lifestyle you really desire, without all the hustle. So I bring you She's the Business podcast, a unique blend of strategies, tactics, mindset, health, and spirituality, literally everything you need to be the successful leader of your dream business. Made by women, for women, this is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
So joining me today to talk to us all about how you can turn your life experiences into a really powerful, motivating story is ghostwriter and memoir coach Marcela Gamboa. She specifically helps six-figure women entrepreneurs turn their most powerful life experiences, the things that maybe you've never even told someone before, or the things that you might not think of as that interesting or relevant, but are to your ideal reader, to somebody who's stuck where you were before. And she helps them to take those and turn it into a book that's engaging, interesting, and leaves a powerful message behind, which so many other books do not. With a degree in creative writing, a background in marketing and copywriting, and just a really poetic approach to language and to digging under the surface and finding those emotional parts of the story that make it so very real and human. She captures the emotional truth of your story and aligns it with obviously your business goals and the vision for the legacy that you want to leave behind by creating this story. Marcela is a talented writer and clearly very talented at writing your story in your own words, because she takes on that personality, that personal approach of each person she works with. So let's find out a bit more about how she does it, why, and how you could make your story the next big hit. So without further ado, let me play this interview for you. Okay, and I'm here in the studio now with Marcela Gamboa, who is a ghostwriter. And we're going to be having a chat today about really what she does in helping women bring their memoirs to life in a book, which is super exciting. Welcome, Marcela. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much, Jessica. So happy to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome. Can you just tell us a bit more about what you do and who specifically you help? Because, I think, the term memoir, we all know it, but it may feel like something it's like, oh, well, only certain types of people do that. Who do you help write a book that's essentially a memoir, and what else would you call it as well? Like, the people who actually have stories that are memoirs, but that they wouldn't even consider it to be one.
Yeah, I mean, so I say I'm a ghostwriter and memoir coach. That's how I identify. And I specifically focus on helping women entrepreneurs, particularly, really bring their most meaningful life experiences to the page by turning them into emotionally honest, high impact books. I really look to work with female entrepreneurs who, in spite of obstacles that they've had in their lives, were really able to achieve a high level of success. And now they want to write a book to really help future generations achieve success no matter the obstacles that they've faced as well. So it really is a broad spectrum. It's not, memoir isn't as niche as people think it is. It really, there's a big expanse of what it could entail. And I particularly, though, am really passionate about memoir because it's one of the most transformative tools of connection and legacy in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Memoir really helps women in business to share the real and often unseen part of their journey, that the places behind the scenes that really got them to their level of success. So really exploring their own values and struggles and the defining moments that help shape them into who they are today.
Mm-hmm.
And really sharing that kind of vulnerability builds powerful trust with their readers, and it really elevates the authority in their businesses in a truly authentic way. It's just a very pure, from the source way of getting to their story and sharing it with the people in their sphere of communication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when we're thinking about this sort of book and story, what I'm hearing is you've had some experiences, you've gone through some things, and you really want to share that, I guess that story of what you did and what you experienced, what you learned, because you know that it's going to help people. And that feels very different to, I think, a lot of business books that entrepreneurs choose to write, which are kind of like, well, this is my method, and it's like a thought leadership piece, for example, whereas this feels a lot more personal. Like this is actually, I'm going to pull back the covers. I'm going to share things that I've probably never shared before, or certainly not all in one place, and share that story of success. Do you find, I'm curious because I know a lot of high achieving women, and they tend to be very kind of modest and self-effacing and just be like, well, yeah, I just got here and did this. And, they might be like, I don't know, is my story really worthy of a book? What do you find? And like, who are the people who are kind of coming to you, or who are the people who should be thinking about doing this?
Yeah, I do want to address just the objections that a lot of women entrepreneurs who maybe think they have a story to tell, but find that there are maybe some limiting beliefs or emotional barriers that are keeping them from wanting to really dive in and go for it with telling their story. They might be thinking, I don't have the time, or I'm not a writer myself, and who would want to read my story, and also just with AI and everything, people are like, oh, well, maybe I could just tell AI my story, but really the truth is that these kind of books, really the type of books that really truly move people, books that really live on legacy, require emotional and deep reflection, and you can't really automate that. You can't automate vulnerability, and you can't shortcut wisdom. And so when these women really feel like ready to tap into that, they're going to want to go all the way. But another thing that I often find as an objective is that, especially with successful women, as we all like to wear a lot of hats. We like to maybe be a little bit perfectionist. And so they might have this belief that in order for the book to feel like it's truly theirs, that they have to write every word themselves. But the reality is that their story is still 100% theirs, even when someone like myself may help them bring it onto the page. It really matters that the story reflects their voice and their vision and the impact that they're really wanting to impart to their readers. I often coin myself a story surrogate because I really like to just be a part of the journey of helping birth someone's story into the world, but it's still their story, just like a surrogate of a child would be like not the child's mother, but just, helping birth this life into the world,
Yeah. I guess I was just sitting there reflecting as you're talking and thinking, gosh, if I was ever going to write a story of mine, I would just have so many different things. Like there's so many experiences and little anecdotes, and you just be like, well, I don't know how many of these I should include, like what goes in, what doesn't. And for me, maybe it's my sort of brain. I'm definitely more of the big picture thinker as opposed to the detailed person. It just starts to feel overwhelmingly difficult to even try to think about how I would put that together in a story that flowed and that was really interesting, but had a point and not, off down 20 different tangents. And so I guess my question to you is, what would you say the key difference is? You mentioned there's a real difference between someone like yourself that's a ghostwriter versus you maybe getting the thoughts out of your head and writing them down and then having a content writer, or even, there are people who might be like a book coach who maybe have a framework or what have you that you can follow. What's the real difference in the process? Like, give us a bit more of a deep dive insight into what you do that's different to if you were going to, write it and get help with writing it.
Yeah, I would definitely say, at least for myself as a ghostwriter, what I bring to this process with an author is that I'm a deep listener. I have emotional intelligence. Being a woman helps with that. And having storytelling expertise, all of those elements really help me capture the essence of a person's voice. So I'm not just filling in a template or regurgitating interview transcripts. I'm really translating who the author is into words that really resonate. I'm not just documenting facts about a story. I'm really translating their emotional journey into something that readers feel. Because especially with a memoir, like that's really our goal, is to get readers to feel something and to take action. So for a lot of my clients, it's not just about writing a book. It's really about processing and honoring everything that they've been through and using that truth to uplift others. And I really choose to walk alongside them in that journey and work closely with them to help shape the narrative arc, because that's important in creating a book. And I do that through, the use of recorded interviews and through story curation, which I have a background in, but also having empathy and compassion are really important qualities to have in this type of work. So having like a coaching element alongside being a ghostwriter helps the client confront blocks that they may have. It may also help them reshape limiting beliefs they may have. And so it really helps them get crystal clear about the story that they actually want to tell. So I know you mentioned that you have all these thoughts and stories that you want to share, but really by honing in on what they want to share, what they really want to impart to their readers. So it really encompasses both structure, but also intuition. It involves strategy, but it also requires soul, in this type of work.
Yeah, it feels to me like a real art, because being able to really weave all of those pieces together, know what to bring in, what kind of isn't really relevant to the story, I think takes just practice, and obviously a certain type of person who has an eye for it and really understands how to build. Because you think, the average person, when you're telling a story, is like, well, I did this and then I did that and then I did that. And it's just like, blah, 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 blah. Whereas like when you can take that and be like, but, what was happening when you were first doing that? And what were you feeling? And getting that little bit deeper, those are the sort of things that you would be doing, right, as interviewing somebody and getting more depth out of them than what they were originally saying to themselves. So you think, well, if you're just going to say your story and maybe like, if you're like, well, I'll just speak it to AI and AI will create the transcript and it'll edit it, it's only going to be at that surface level that you originally gave it, because it can't read what's inside that you haven't yet said. I guess is
Yeah.
like, that's so important, right? So just the
Yeah.
depth, I'm just feeling from you like that depth of story that you'd be able to get out would be so much more important. Why would someone go through the process? Even if I'm like, well, I've got so much to share and, I really want to tell my story, whether it's for my kids or whatever, maybe I'm like, I didn't even know if it would help my business or not. But, it is going to take some time. Like you're going to have to do the interviews and talk about stuff and have that time in creating the book. Why is it such a powerful tool for women in business? Like what does it bring? Like what is apart from the kind of, I guess, emotional reasons of wanting to share things in a way that's then easy for people to read, maybe your family and your kids to kind of know more about you. From the business side, if you were doing it because you've achieved something in your business, what is the power of this story? And why would you choose to do this kind of one as opposed to writing more of the, methodology, thought leadership piece?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I touch on this a bit in my introduction, but really just to share your story in a way that showcases the vulnerability of your story. It really shows behind the curtain of everything that got you to where you are. But really what it comes down to is you really just want to inspire people. You want to continue to pay it forward, right? And I think that's really important just as a whole, as a society, is how can you do that? And I think by doing it in a way where you can inspire others, but also reach people in your audience and reach more people, I think is huge. And I think there's really no other way that you can get down to the depths of your story any other way but through memoir. I mean, you can write blogs and you can write social media posts and showcase stories, but they're really only little tidbits of what you've been through. And so I think if there's women out there who are really ready to dive deep and to showcase how they've overcome things and how they've achieved success and want to see that from other women and maybe other minorities, people who don't have it as easy, I think allowing that connection to happen is so important. And that's really the point of us on this earth, is to connect with one another, to realize we're really not that alone. And it's through stories like this, it's through memoirs. I mean, I read so many memoirs. I'm a nerd for memoirs, and they span all walks of life. And maybe I don't necessarily identify with every single author 100%, but I learned so much about myself, even through just like a few aspects of their story, or more about my neighbor, or more about my best friend, or, so it just allows for so much connection to happen, way more beyond what you could even fathom, but it's just a beautiful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think a question that some people may have in thinking, well, I've got a story, but should I do this or not? I guess the fear that you might have before you do it is, well, what if I go through all this effort, write a book, and then nobody reads it? Like it's just, another story that's out there that no one's picking up, no one's reading, and you've gone through all of that effort. I guess now you've got something in a book which is of value to you and in yourself. But what would you say are the things that you can do, or that you specifically do, that takes, that makes a story really, what's the word, magnetic, like, or attractive? People want to pick it up and read it. What is the difference there between a memoir that's just a story that's out there on a shelf versus one that people are like hungry to read and gain a lot from?
Yeah, I think what's really important is for the author to deeply connect with the story that they're telling. So identifying some important key elements is something I do in my nonfiction book planning guide, to really then just set us up for success, to really help inform the type of story that we want to tell, that really makes us know for sure that this is gonna be for someone out there, and for a lot of someones. But so some important things to really hone in on is what your theme is, what your core message is, and then to identify the purpose of your book, right? So is it just for legacy? Is it because you want to spark healing for others? Do you want to build your brand? So it's really, you can do all of those things, by the way, but it's really important to identify the purpose of your book and what you want it to do, because that'll inform the writing itself as well, how we write the book. Because I also have a background in marketing and copy, and so I understand the marketing aspect and in writing this book and wanting it to reach audiences as well. So I think that's an important factor. And to really also identify who your ideal reader is huge, and you really want to think of one specific person who you're kind of just writing the book as a letter to, because then it'll really make that reader feel like you wrote it for them. And you might think, oh, okay, so is just one person going to feel like this book is for them? No, it's just because you're really honing in on that. It allows you to create this narrative that has a purpose and allows for the reader to feel and believe everything that you're saying and really achieve a transformation from your book. And that's just a domino effect, right? If one person feels a transformation, they're going to go and tell their neighbor, or they're going to go and tell their best friend, I just read this book. And so it's just, when it really hits home to one person, they're only going to want to share that. And now we have the internet and reviews, and so that's something that all these things are really important to help create a clarity that really shapes every part of the book. So even if you're at the beginning and you're kind of thinking, I don't really know how to get started, the nonfiction book planning guide that I walk my clients through is really a great tool to help organize your thoughts and uncover the deeper message of what you're meant to share. So it really solidifies like what exactly you want this book to be, instead of getting a little bit caught up in the fears of, oh, is this book going to go anywhere? Who is this book for? Who's even going to want to read it? And just the typical objections that'll come up, for even authors. I mean, I address objections in the nonfiction book planning guide pertaining to readers, because that's another thing that's important to clarify, to identify from the get-go, because by addressing the reader's objections, you're creating trust and you're allowing them to really feel seen and heard. So I also say for authors, address your limiting beliefs too. Identify whether, they may be that you're not a writer, or that no one will care about your story, or not enough people will care about your story. It's not true. Your emotional barriers might be your fear of judgment. I've had some clients where they've been through some things with their family members, and they're a bit hesitant to share all of their story because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. And it's really important to just fully go in, don't sugarcoat. You got to tell it all and not be afraid. And also to push away any imposter syndrome that, you're not worthy of telling your story. And also perspective barriers too, like, oh, it might not be the right time to tell my story. I really haven't done everything that I want to do in my life. And, because that's another thing that'll come up too. But no, I mean, you've achieved success. There's, the sky's the limit. There's a lot more that you could achieve if you want to, but that doesn't mean that you're not there. You're not at the finish line enough to where you deserve to tell your story,
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because how many people, especially those who are high achieving, you always think, well, yeah, but I'm here, but you're looking ahead thinking I'm not
Mm-hmm.
there. And so
Mm-hmm.
like you might be like always, well, when I, but then when you get to that next place, then you're going to feel like you're not the next step that you're already seeing ahead of you. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's such a good point because, wherever you are, if you have had an experience, you've come through something, you have something of value to share, it is of value to those who are experiencing whatever it was that you had, who are those steps behind you or, really struggling with the things that you have overcome, then they're not going to care that you're not at the end goal of wherever it is that you're going, do they? They're like, well, you can help me to get to where you are, and that might be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
How do like as a ghostwriter, working with different people, obviously everybody's kind of has their own particular voice, their own
Mm-hmm.
style. How do you manage that in helping them to write a book that actually does feel like their own? Because I'm guessing that's the whole point, is that
Mm-hmm.
the ghostwriter, it feels like at the end of the day that you've written your own book and it's in your words and it's very
Mm-hmm.
you. What a challenge for you, I can only imagine. So
Mm-hmm.
just share a little bit about how do you manage to do that? Like, how do you get into someone else's voice and write in that way?
Yeah, I mean, really just my background is I started college in journalism. I finished college with a creative writing degree. So I've got aspects of, I'm very curious and inquisitive. So that helps in just me asking the right questions when
Mm,
I'm doing the interviewing. But also having, the background in poetry and creative writing and literature helps just with stylistically tapping into the voice of the author, and even just having my own lived experiences and my own healing journey and understanding that for myself, I'm able to really hold space for emotional honesty. I
mm-hmm.
think that's really important in guiding my authors to really draw out elements of their story that help shape the narrative because it's very specific to them. So things we want to draw out would be like specific details of what happened in their story, and finding, the key elements like dialogue that help move the story forward, whether that be external or internal. And then looking at different sensory details and to really put the reader in that moment specifically from the
Mm-hmm.
author's perspective, and then how their thoughts and feelings were at the time as well. So these are type of things that I am digging deep. I'm like an archaeologist trying to get down to all of these things to really help build this world that is specifically the authors, and it can't be
Mm.
anyone else's.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. Like what an incredible thing to be able to do and to help someone with. How long does it actually take? Because you hear people writing books, especially if they're writing them themselves, and they're like, well, this has been 18 months in the making, or, sometimes even longer. How long does it typically take you to help someone with their memoir? And I know that it's going to depend on the person and how available they are and,
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
of that kind of stuff. But, what would you be looking at typically?
Yeah. So typically the process would take around 6 months on average. It could be less than that, could be closer to 4. It just depends. It could be a little longer, closer to 9. It really just depends on the availability of the author.
Mm.
Ideally, I like to meet with the author once a week for a weekly interview that usually lasts from an hour to 2 hours, and then from there we would just do the weekly interviews. Ideally, I start with one chapter that I write from whatever point we want to start in the book, um,
Mm.
and bring that back to them and make sure that it has the right tone, the right voice, the right literary chops to their standards, so that that then defeats, me writing the whole book and coming back to them and they're like, So it just really kind of solidifies that from the get-go. And then moving on, I would do the rest of the interviews and then write the book. And then bring it back to them once the draft is done. We work together on that. We make any necessary adjustments before I create the final version. We review everything together. So it's a very collaborative and personal process that really makes space for clarity, storytelling, and trust between myself and the author. But yeah, it really kind of just depends on their availability and just not only just time-wise, but sometimes things could get a little deep, a little intense, a little heavy. And so really that's something that an author really has to be prepared for. And sometimes they might need a little bit more time to really get down to the depths of where they're trying to go, which is completely understandable. I really just try to be as supportive as possible and just try to move the process along too, because I know that usually there are projective deadlines in mind for just business wise and such. So just trying to be mindful of that, but also allowing this process to be as spacious and personalized as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that doesn't sound that much, really. When you think a lot of people spend a lot longer, like 6 months is like, well, there's almost nothing really to put a book out, which is incredible. It doesn't seem that onerous at all. So you must do a really great job. What was I just going to ask? It was something and now it's completely gone from my brain, but I think I was thinking before about, you mentioned your book, your planning process that you use, which, really helps to set the tone and sort of get the structure right from the beginning. Are there any other mistakes that you see people making with their, these type of books, their stories that aren't because of a lack of planning, but something else that you're like, well, this is something you definitely want to avoid doing?
I would say, yeah, because sometimes I'm even reading memoirs and or listening to them, and I like I can't get through them because they're very just robotic sounding almost, very just let me just retell every single thing that happened. And it's important to realize too that memoirs aren't a chronological retelling of your whole entire life. That's why it's really important, and what I address in my planning guide is to identify a theme, because you want your stories to enhance the theme. You're not just trying to throw in a bunch of stories in there that make no sense to the theme. You just throw it in there because it happened in your life, because then that's not going to feel purposeful for the reader. They're going to be like, it's really going to throw everything off. And that's, so it's important to realize the importance of having a narrative arc and having a theme, because that allows the reader to stay engaged and want to continue reading your book. Also, knowing that the introduction really does matter to you, because that's where you hook the reader and get them to be wanting to read, excited to follow along in your journey with you. It's important to know that also the reader's reading your book, but they're thinking about themselves the whole way through. So you really have to keep that in mind. And that's why it's also important to really hone in on who your ideal reader is, because this book is for them. And so there are other memoirs or other books out there that you can tell just don't have a specific reader in mind, and it's just not. So you're sitting there and you're listening to it, or you're sitting there and you're reading it, and you're just not feeling connected to what they're saying, even though they might have an interesting story that they're telling. The way that they're telling it is just not feeling connected enough to anyone specifically, or maybe doesn't have a specific theme. So I think the theme and the ideal reader are two very, very important elements to address and to make sure you have in writing your memoir.
Yeah. Can I ask, just to dive into that a little bit deeper for a moment, when you're thinking about your ideal reader, it's like, well, I'm telling my story and obviously I've got a reason for telling it. I reckon that who the ideal reader is something a lot of people would just get stuck on straight away, because it's like, but that shouldn't change. It's still my story, and you want to tell, obviously you're going to tell the truth. So you're not like, well, I'm telling it for that person, so I'm going to change it all for them, or I'm telling it for this person, you change it for that. It's not about that, right? So can you share, what does that really mean when you're thinking about your ideal reader, and what difference does that have then in the decisions that you make and how the story comes together? Like, maybe give an example if you want.
Yeah. So I had one client, pretty much as we got through the book planner, she knew right away that she wanted to write the book to her younger self.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was really important to realize early on, because you're writing to someone, younger, and maybe that didn't know everything that you went through, but kind of telling them that it's possible, right?
Mm.
So that of course is going to impact the writing style and the way that you're telling the story, versus if she were to decide to tell it to, I don't know, like her boss's daughter or something. It's similar, but yeah, I think honing in on that is important, because it'll inform how, stylistically, the type of voice that you decide to take in the writing. Yeah, I would say that's a definitely strong example of how it really just informs the writing to identify that. Not doing it, like I said, it leaves it too open to interpretation, and it doesn't feel like the person reading it, that there's this purpose behind it. It doesn't feel like, it just feels like there's something empty beneath the surface,
And, say you've got a story that's kind of quite unusual. You might know that it's not something many people have experienced. I can think just off the top of my head, there was a lady who she was running an ultra marathon, and there was a crazy bushfire in WA, and she got most of her body burnt, insane story. So it's not many people are running ultra marathons. They're definitely not running them through a desert, and they've probably not experienced that at all. Mm-hmm. So when you've got a story that is quite unique, but an incredibly powerful one to tell, how do you make it relatable? What are the things that you do to connect in a reader?
Yeah, that I would definitely say ties back into theme. So the theme, pointing out what the theme of the book is, and then finding stories within her life that relates back to the theme. And guarantee there's going to be stories within her life that led her to that moment, or led her to the aftermath of that moment, that other people are going to relate to, and they're going to see that through line through. So really knowing that you need to build the bricks of getting to the theme is important, and all of those bricks are just pieces of their story that fit into that.
Yeah, I see. It's sort of why this story? Why are we telling it? What is the purpose or the lesson? It wasn't necessarily what she did and what she was doing, but that gives is it resilience? Is it bravery? Exactly. Is it bouncing back, those are the kind of things I suppose then we can relate to our own life and think, well, maybe we haven't run through a fire and, all of that kind of stuff, but we've done something else, and you could,
Exactly.
draw some parallels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think this is just such a great concept. I don't know if people listening, if you've ever even thought that you would be worthy of writing a book about your life, and you don't have to have done something as crazy as like running an ultra marathon through a bushfire.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking of an extreme example then because of that question, but like there is so much, and I think the women I meet often, like yourself through this podcast, I'm like, wow, there's so many people have led very interesting lives, have done amazing things, and yet we probably just think it's just us, it's just normal, it's just who we are and what we've done, and you always think, oh, other people are far more interesting than me. But yeah, I guess what would you say to that person who's sitting there thinking, well, I don't know if I've got really much to say?
Yeah, I would definitely say that your story isn't too small, it isn't too late, and it isn't too messy to matter. There is going to be someone out there that really needs to hear your voice, to feel less alone and to feel more understood and to feel inspired. It really could take just reading a book, and it'll take someone over the edge to really want to make a positive change in their life. It really just takes that. It takes our sharing our lights and our own authenticities out into the world. And that's reason enough to want to write your story, is to just make a difference, and even in one person's life. But like I said, it's just a domino effect, and doing this type of work is only going to be very rewarding.
And I can just imagine, I'm thinking now about AI, and you mentioned that previously, that, sometimes people are using AI to write their stories. And like, I can kind of see AI could be helpful with informational kind of books, but it's drawing from what already exists out there. And I think that the more and more that we have AI created content and so much that is going on, even, people are using it for so much now, this type of story that's actually very human, very much written by a human, and so personal, is going to have so much more power and weight than anything else, because we're going to be craving this actual real connection, like the humanness, I think.
More than ever.
Yeah. Which, if that's not a reason to do it, then I don't know what is.
You said it, Jessica.
Thank you so much for your time, Marcela. This has been such an interesting chat, because, real insight into the world of ghostwriting. I have to say, obviously knew what it was, but just hadn't ever really thought about it to that level of detail of, what it entails and how it works. But, what an amazing gift and service that you can provide to people, and just helping to get what they have in their heads and their hearts, some of their experiences out into a format that's fun and easy and interesting for other people to read as well. It's incredible. So much kind of kudos to you for what you do. Now, if people want to kind of reach out to you, connect with you, find out a bit more, maybe even ask about your process and how you do things, where are they best to find you?
Yeah, they can find me at my website, which is kinikiacreative.com. I believe it will be in the show notes.
Yes.
Yeah, my company I actually named after my middle name, Kinikia, and it's a Hawaiian middle name. I'm from Hawaii, and it means teacher of all people. And I felt it real apropos to just name my company that, because I really just really live to just help people and teach them how to tell their stories. So yeah, they can connect with me there, and they can find me on Instagram at Kinikia Creative as well. I'm also on LinkedIn, Marcela Gamboa. I'm not sure if there are other Marcela Gamboas on there. There might be, but if they type in my name and put ghostwriter after that, I believe I'm the only ghostwriter Marcela Gamboa on there. But yeah.
Amazing. No, that's so great. Well, we'll make sure that we've linked up your website and your LinkedIn profiles and things in the show notes. So yeah, if you want to go and check Marcela out, reach out. Even I think you said that you do some book planning sessions, that you can kind of book a call and actually have a chat with you about the potential of a book and sort of see if there is a story there. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm offering some complimentary book planning sessions for women entrepreneurs who are serious about writing their memoir. So in that call, we'll use my book planning guide to really map out your core message, your reader, your book's unique purpose, kind of the things we discuss. Even we can go into structure of the book. That's fun too. But it's really a great way to see the full potential of what your story could be.
Yeah. Wow. That is incredible that you're offering some complimentary ones. What an amazing offer for people. So if you're thinking about it, you're still listening, go and book one while she's still offering them for free, because it sounds like a really in-depth session and, you gain a lot of value out of it, whether or not you go ahead with it. So go and book one in. I think this would be a really great thing to do. And thank you so much for joining us today, Marcela. It's been amazing.
It's been such a pleasure, Jessica. Thanks so much.
Are you struggling to find quality clients these days? Well, in this world of instant gratification and abundance of AI-produced content, it may be feeling harder than ever to attract the sort of clients who really value your expertise, are ready to show up, ready to commit and invest in getting the results that they actually want. But it's not just about guessing, and it's not about just creating more content hoping that something sticks. There is some specific things that you can do and need to have in your business in order to attract those sort of clients. And I'm sharing them with you in my training, my free training called The Magnetic Formula. So go and grab yourself a seat for this free class and let me show you what are these 5 key things you need to have in your business so that you end up with a stream of committed, high quality clients who are ready to invest, who help you have a very thriving, flourishing business that earns you over 6 figures a year, and you do it all in very easy part-time hours. Head over to jessicaosborne.com/TMF or drop below into the show notes, click on the link and grab yourself a seat for this free training while it still exists. I'll see you there.